At that time, when Adele was trying to convince them, Verdio, with a sharp look asked her, "So, you said that we will not be able to stop the Saint Dragon, do you think I will believe your words, after all you did, with the apostles of Telos flying around the room, with their white wings spread out so beautifully like a dove's?" Verdio solemnly told her, "Today, our order will make a miracle, and humanity will once again bow before our God, the God of Telos." Adele against the arrogance of the order and the resurrection of the Saint Dragon. After listening to Verdio's words, Adele realized that trying to convince them was futile. The only way to stop both of these things was to offer the saintess life as a sacrifice at the sacrifice formation. Adele's eyes narrowed at the thought, and Clarice's face then once again appeared in her mind. The smile on her face gave rise to a feeling of guilt that gnawed at Adele's heart. It was also what made Adele decide to sacrifice herself in place of Clarice. She did not regret it, because she felt that this was the responsibility she had to carry from the beginning, but the blessing of the sacred law engraved on her body protected her. It drew out all the divine power Adele had, and turned back the world's time. Adele dropped her lute and fell to her knees on the ground after returning to the past once again. Creating a phenomenon like time loops almost consumed all her mana and only left enough mana to restore her body to at least be able to live. Every time she went back in time, she always woke up in the corridor that led to the Glocked Hall practice field. Once her divine power ran out, the blessing engraved on her body would fade, and the Saint Dragon will be sealed again. So, Adele never stopped her steps. Again and again, she walked through this corridor. Nothing changed in each time loop. The arrogance they had was still repeated. And the resurrection of the Saint Dragon could not be stopped. And when they left the chapel and searched for Clarice's whereabouts, Adele took advantage of the void and entered there. She placed herself into the sacrificial formation. Even though her body was covered in blood, she never stopped. Again and again, she continued to feel the excruciating pain brought by the sacrificial formation, but Adele endured it. She felt that this was indeed the punishment she deserved, the punishment for forcing others to do what she should do. Somehow, after tasting death so many times, her heart felt calm. Adele happily thought that this would not last forever. Her divine power did not have no limit. After thinking that, Adele then picked up her dropped lute, and walked back through the corridor. She had given up on persuading Verdio. She realized that she could not stop him. As Adele hobbled through the corridor and left blood stains on every step, she suddenly stopped and clenched her hands tightly. Her hands shook violently, which showed the strong emotions that were in her heart at the moment. With a determined look, Adele thought, "This time, once I arrived at the chapel, I will not hesitate to surrender my body to that sacrificial formation, in order to stop the resurrection of the Saint Dragon, and erase all the tragedies that will happen before the Saint Dragon appears." But, when she almost reached the chapel, she was suddenly stopped by someone. Adele was naturally confused by that. She had never experienced this in time loops before, seeing Ed standing in front of her. Adele confusedly asked him why he was here. Ed did not immediately answer her question and asked if she wanted orange juice or just cold water. After that, with a cup of orange juice in his hand, Ed then led Adele to a park bench. Adele was really confused why Ed was here and did this. She then told him that she had to do something. But, while handing her the cup, Ed said that she was going to die. His words seemed to wake Adele. Her eyes that had been staring blankly, were now fully open. She then remembered something, a memory before this time loop happened. That time, before she stepped into the chapel and tried to sacrifice herself, she met someone. He was Ed Roth Taylor. Ed at that time told her that she would die soon. She was certainly surprised to hear what he said. During these time loops, the world always kept turning the same way, except for that very first time. She never saw him again after that. At that time, she didn't ask why he knew that. She just smiled gently at him and said that she knew that. This time, she also answered with the same answer. The conversation at that time was like a distant memory for her, and here she was, back to when it all started. Nothing had changed. Adele felt that it was time for her to end this conversation and leave immediately. It was time to end all this. But, hearing her answer, Ed asked her if that was all. Adele was then confused by his question. With an annoyed look, Ed said that he didn't know what was going on, but, even though she already knew that she was going to die, but was she just going to say that? Hearing that, Adele hesitantly replied yes. She was really confused at the moment. She had already said the answer, so why did he insist on this? She said that she had to leave immediately. Ed could only sigh at her words. He then asked her once again if that was really all she wanted to say. Hearing that, Adele said that she didn't have anything to say anyways. In this time loop, she had confirmed it many times that she was going to die. It was a fact that she had known for a long time. Even then, there was nothing else she could say. When Adele was remembering her old memories, Ed's figure continued to haunt her and asked her if that was all. Her heart suddenly became hesitant when she heard his question. Maybe yes, she really wanted to say something, but, instead of saying, she sang a song, and Clarice smiled as she listened to the song. She felt that it was enough, but Ed's figure continued to haunt her in her memory. He again asked if that was all. Hearing Ed ask her that repeatedly, Adele frustratingly said that it was enough. Anyway, it was enough. She seemed to be fed up with it and asked him to leave her alone. But, when Ed once again asked her if it was just that, Adele was then surprised when the scene of her childhood suddenly appeared in her mind. It was the moment when her father left her. Looking at her father's lonely looking back, Adele smiled a little. She felt that her father must have gone through a lot of hard things, but, her eyes then widened in surprise, because her father's figure was suddenly replaced by Ed's figure now. Ed again asked her if it was just that, but not long after that, she then returned to see the figure of her father, who was now turning towards her with a doubtful look. This made her unable to distinguish whether it was just her imagination or not. Amid Ed's questions that continued to ring in her mind, Adele then could no longer hold back her tears. Behind the back of her father, who hesitated for so long, the words she wanted to say in the end were not "you went through a lot." Adele was filled with sadness and regret when remembering that. She wanted to shout desperately and ask her father not to leave her. Adele's hand holding a cup of orange juice trembled violently when thinking about it. She then told Ed honestly that she was afraid. She didn't want to die. After countless lies, like a dam breaking, the truth finally gushed out of her mouth. Ed sighed when he heard that. After finally receiving an answer from Adele, Ed then took a sip of the cold water he brought. After finishing the water bottle, Ed then put it on a chair and stood up. While rolling up his sleeves, Ed asked her, "Why did you take so long to say such a clear thing?" Adele could only feel confused and surprised by that. Ed told her to let out everything that was on her mind. Everything she had been holding back all this time. Ed also told her that it was time for them to end all this. At that time, after Clarice told Ed everything, Ed chose to split up and go find Adele. As for Clarice herself, she was now heading to the chapel, but, when she was about to go inside, a mighty man with a spear in his hand and white wings on his back suddenly appeared in front of her. He was the apostle of Telos, Taldarek. Seeing her, Taldarek confusedly asked her wasn't she supposed to wait in the tricks hall, how could she come here, but, Clarice didn't answer his question and ran straight inside, and when Taldarek was about to stop her, Clarice quickly brushed him off and told him to step aside. She was determined, this time, she would definitely reveal the truth behind everything. Right after Clarice opened the chapel door and saw everyone inside, she then immediately told them to stop everything they were doing right now, including herself. All the higher-ups of the order were now inside the chapel. The Holy Emperor Eldane, the Apostles of Telos, and Archbishop Verdio. Although Verdio was surprised and confused to see Clarice here, but he was still calm and smiled gently at her. Clarice then immediately walked up to him. She told him that she believed he was a man of faith who only cared about the holy city, a faithful believer with a conscience. Verdio confirmed her words. He lived only for the holy city, with a big smile and without any guilt. Verdio explained it to her. The Holy Lord always resides above the heavens, but ignorant people won't believe unless they're shown something. Clarice's eyes widened in disbelief when she heard his words. She knew what he meant. He intended to kill the Saint Dragon and spread its blessing. Verdio confirmed it. He also promised her that it wouldn't take long. Hearing that, Clarice then tried to convince him, "You underestimate the Saint Dragon. Have you ever considered the possibility of failure?" But, when Clarice said that, she suddenly realized something. A bad guess appeared in her mind. At this time, she asked him whether from the start, he had intended to use her life as collateral. Verdio smiled cruelly to see Clarice finally realize that. He then tried to comfort her and said that this was just as a guarantee, to prepare for the worst-case scenario and in case the plan did not go well. Meanwhile, Ed and Adele were now running together heading somewhere. Adele had told him everything. Hearing that story made Ed think that this was indeed not an encouraging truth. To sum it up, the Order's finances have been depleted for a long time, so Archbishop Verdio intends to resurrect the Saint Dragon, with the aim of showing the heroic actions of the Order in destroying it. He did it to revive people's faith and expand the power of the Order. Adele said that Archbishop Verdio has always been like that since he was a common priest. He always wanted to expand the influence of the Order and make the holy city storage room full. That was the way he chose to show his faith. Hearing that, Ed asked her if she had tried to persuade him. Adele replied, since she fled from the holy city, he no longer believed in her, but even if it was from others, she was sure Archbishop Verdio would not listen to any persuasion, he would always go through coercion, because he brought a power that guaranteed victory for anyone, the Telos apostles, that was the source of their confidence, a troops that strong enough to face entire armies, the strongest force the holy city had. The apostles of Telos flew around the room and surrounded Clarice, while standing behind her. Verdio apologized to her, he promised her that this wouldn't last long, so he asked her to please rest for now. Adele was filled with helplessness when she told him that, with their power, even someone like her couldn't, but, before she could finish her sentence, she was then surprised and blushed, because Ed suddenly picked her up. Adele was really confused and didn't understand his sudden action, if it was their power that was the problem. Ed said that it was no big deal, right after Ed explained that, to her, a high-level lightning magic, heavenly punishment, suddenly struck into the chapel where Clarice and the order officials were. The magic was so powerful that it immediately destroyed the roof of the chapel as soon as it hit. Verdio was then shocked by the sudden change and stared in fear at the heavenly punishment strike. After that, the feeling of surprise in Verdio's heart was then replaced by panic and fear. He frantically asked who dared to do this. Was she not afraid of the god of Telos? But, the attacker casually replied no. Verdio was stunned to hear that answer. Right now, all he felt was disbelief. The Telos apostles whose strength he was proud of, turned out to be so fragile in the face of that magic attack. The person who attacked and stormed into the chapel turned out to be Lucy. Lucy's power was so strong, the lightning magic she cast could easily paralyze the strongest force the holy city had. After landing on the ground, she then stared at Verdio and continued to say, because I am an atheist.